Hi, folks. So, as those of you who follow the digital therapeutics space probably already know, Pear Therapeutics filed for Chapter 11 bankruptcy a little while ago, maybe a week or so. I thought that was kind of perplexing, so I decided to take a look at it. And in this video, I'm going to share some of my perspectives on it. So, hi, folks. Welcome back to the channel. Hope everybody's happy and healthy and doing well and is out there and exercising. So, yeah. I guess this might have been a little bit surprising for people and obviously very disappointing. PDT are important, and Pear was a pioneer in this space. They had a number of firsts with regards to FDA approvals of prescription digital therapeutics. They had a significant number of customers. I think there were about 45 prescriptions written for their products in 2022, about half of which were filled. And as a result of the bankruptcy filing, they've now stopped filling new prescriptions, and I think they're slowly beginning to cut off access for existing customers as well, which is obviously very unfortunate. And so there are three issues that stand out for me that I wanted to share in this video. The first one is their income statement. The second one is sort of the reimbursement issue in general, and specifically the reimbursement of PDTs in the US. And thirdly, a dispute or a potential dispute between Pear Therapeutics and one of their major lenders, probably the major lender, called Perceptive Advisors LLC. So let's dive into these issues one by one, and we'll take it from there. So the first thing that jumps out at me is, quite frankly, their income statement. If you take a look at it, they had expenses of $136 million against revenues of $12.7 million. Resulting in an operating loss of $123 million for 2022. And so, it's a little hard to understand how you run a company that way, especially when you incur $80 million in selling general administrative expenses. It's sort of a foregone conclusion that you're going to go bankrupt unless you've raised significant amounts of money to cover those losses for years to come, which they didn't do. They did, and they still have some cash on hand. Specifically, they had about $72 million in current assets at the end of the year, according to their 10-K, 48 of which were in cash, another 11 in short-term securities, which are obviously very liquid, but still, that's nowhere near enough to cover the 100+ million in operating losses that they had. So clearly, that had something to do with why they had to file for bankruptcy. It's clear to see that they're how they could be a sustainable business, right? The second, and it's an issue that they actually raised in their filing, is that reimbursement in the US is obviously a very complicated matter. Companies who come up with products have to negotiate with individual commercial payers for reimbursement, which is a lengthy and arduous process. There is certainly nothing elegant about it. What complicates things further here is that PDTs are especially tricky because Medicare, which is a major federal government payer, is not authorized to pay for PDTs. Some 65 million Americans, mostly elderly, but also others, are enrolled in Medicare, and because Medicare is not allowed to cover PDTs, none of them are eligible for reimbursement for PDTs. And that cuts off a very significant market for Pear and other PDT companies. But, one of the things that stands out about that is that there is absolutely nothing new about that. Anyone who knows anything about US healthcare knows that getting approval for reimbursement from commercial insurers is an arduous process. Everybody knew that PDTs were not covered by Medicare. There was an effort in Congress to do something about that. The Access to PDTs Act is before Congress. It was submitted in 2022. It's not being acted upon right now. We'll see if it moves forward. But quite frankly, unless it does, nothing will change with regards to Medicare reimbursement for PDTs. And once again, that was known. It wasn't a secret. And so clearly, Pear management should have known about it and should have taken that into account. The third, and I think potentially the most intriguing issue in this bankruptcy filing is, and I'm wondering if it may actually not be one of the primary reasons for it, is that Pear is very clear in their 10-K that they seem to have a somewhat troubled relationship with their major lender, Perceptive Advisors, LLC. Pear owes them about $10.4 million, and they seem to have pledged all of their assets to them. And there seems to be a dispute related to loan covenants and the extent to which Pear may have been in breach of them, which would have had fairly negative consequences. It also seems that the covenants seem to impose very strict limitations, potentially, as to how Pear could operate. They don't specifically spell out what it is, but they're pretty clear about the fact that these covenants impose significant restrictions on them. And so I wonder if in the end the Chapter 11 filing is first and foremost an effort by Pear management to remove or force a renegotiation of these covenants and restrictions. I guess we'll see if that is what happens as the Chapter 11 proceeds down the road in bankruptcy court. But right now, as I read their 10-K, it's certainly something that stands out as something that one would want to negotiate. And bankruptcy court may not be a bad place to try to do that. So I guess we'll have to see. So with all that said, where does that leave us? Well, first and foremost, it's obviously not good for their patients, current and future patients, who are now being cut off from these offerings. Hopefully that will change and change quickly. I think we all hope for that. That said, it's hard not to conclude that this bankruptcy filing is an outcome of somewhat questionable financial management, with expenses being so out of whack with revenues, and the reimbursement environment being what it is and being well understood for what it is. It was either a huge miscalculation or, I don't know what. But clearly, if the company reemerges, it will reemerge as a much smaller company with less expenses and fewer employees. They had about 200 employees at the end of 2022. That is clearly a cost mass that is not sustainable. And thirdly, this agreement with their lender seems to be very restrictive and very onerous. And it also raises the question of why did the company's management agree to that in the first place? I guess we may never know. It will be interesting to see what happens and if it's renegotiated, and if so, how. And I guess we'll just have to wait and see. So I will continue to follow this. I find it kind of interesting right now, and we'll let you know if there's anything new and newsworthy. In the meantime, I hope you found this video useful or interesting or something. Let me know in the comments. Share your feedback, please, and your thoughts. And I hope you're well. Take good care. Bye-bye.